Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Non-League Network podcast. We are joined, David and I, by Lee Rogers today, who is going to be talking to us about Footballer. He is the CEO of Footballer. He is also a coach. He has coached at various different levels. I'll let him explain which levels he's been at. One of the interesting things of there as well for us is his coaching he's done in the United States. So welcome, Lee. Love you to give us a bit of an intro, who you are, what you're doing, and why you're talking to us.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Pat and Dave. Yeah, real pleasure to be with you guys today. So I appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you guys. So yeah, I've been coaching really about coming up to 30 years now, which is it makes me feel very old just kind of saying that. But so I've worked really at all levels of the game. So started out really with Convo coaching. I was quite fortunate to get into that program quite early. So it's very much a technical skills program, and obviously still very prevalent today. And I think in many ways it's kind of been a benchmark for a lot of that kind of technical work. So back in the day, for me, it was really going into professional academies, Cat 1 academies. Would go in and work with the players from that side as well as the staff. So it was really trying to present the best options into those guys and kind of spark new ideas, bit of creativity, and really focusing on the technical skills, but obviously always relating back to the game. So everything was really about, how it relates to that, how you can improve individual performance and then ultimately lead into team success. So that was really my introduction to coaching, which was a great thing for me. Very quickly then got opportunities to kind of go out to the US coaching as well. So that was really the kind of soccer camps back in the day, but again, via the Convo network, and we'd go out and work at all different levels over there. And then so I kind of had a bit of a cycle. So I'd go out to the US for 3 or 4 months, was then working in Scandinavia for 3 or 4 months, mainly with professional sides over there, AIK, Stockholm, Your Gordon, and a few other clubs in that side. And then 3 or 4 months really in the UK here. So yeah, it was loving life really on that sense. And then I think things progressed from there. Yeah, no, I was very to go and see different cultures, different experiences. For me as a coach and an individual, to see those things was very cool. So, and obviously very different circumstances, very different kind of levels, and just it was a real eye opener, to be honest. And I actually fell in love with it from pretty quickly.
To be honest, we've planned some questions, and already I'm going off piece because already you're talking about something that's of interest. You haven't even gone for 2 minutes. I'm going, so the questions. So if you've got the US, you've got Scandinavia, you've got the UK. Obviously, apart from we speak English better. What's the differences that you found there in terms of the maybe the level of professionalism or the approach towards the game? Kind of what was it like for you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, great question. I mean, it was, very different markets, in the sense of US is very much a pay-to-play market, which, back in the day, it was very much about British accents kind of going in, and there was a kind of a stigma that if you had the British accent, you're going to be a great coach, which, I'm sure we all know, coaches that speak English aren't necessarily great coaches and things like that. So I actually ended up moving to New York and had my own business over there in New York. And, and that was still with the Convo company at the time. And you go out and pitch to all the parents, everybody there. We had obviously endorsements from some of the best coaches and programs in the world where it was used, with Brazil national team, with Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and had all these endorsements, Gerard Houllier from the French national team. And inevitably, get to the Q&A part, and the parents in the US would be, okay, what accent have your parents got? And you're like, what accent have your coaches got? And you're
right.
You're missing the point. It's not about that. So whereas I think certainly from Scandinavian markets and the UK, there was a real kind of more of a hunger, to learn on that side, and really wanted to kind of get that feedback, really wanted to kind of progress and push on. I think certainly from a Swedish market, the players were just, that level of discipline was kind of there, and it's just far more the outdoor culture. All the kids will turn up on their bikes, literally put the bikes and cycle into training, put the bikes over there, train, work hard, very intense for that matter, of the duration of the sessions, and then back on the bikes and going home. So there was a bit more independence, I think more maturity from the Scandinavian market from those guys. But no, it's but fundamentally, I think, it was a lot of players relatively the same in that sense, wanting to be the best and try and learn, very competitive in that side. But I think, each one certainly had its own uniqueness to it as well.
Yeah.
Just touching on you mentioned Convo there. That's something when I started dabbling in coaching, is I really liked their philosophy, because it's all about ball mastery, isn't it? And I think the FA are finally catching up to what Coerva have been doing for however many years. You know, they've introduced the 3v3 and stuff like that now in the younger years, and proper ball mastery. I actually met Alf. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Gustav Glustin. Yeah. I actually met him at the Grassroots show last year and had a picture with him and had a little chat. So yeah, it's something I've been looking into and into their packages and stuff like that, because I think in non-league, I think coaches need a bit of help with their structure and stuff, especially the lower. Well, I don't know what it's like at the top, but lower down. From my experience, it's just all the same. There's no real structure or anything behind what they're trying to do. So I think that's something I want to do with the non-league network, and I'm sure you could probably help with that as well. Is helping coaches in non-league, if we can get past some of the egos, in just improving the standard and helping players improve.
Yeah, no, it's a massive part, and I think, you know, certainly from the non-league perspective, and you know, whether that's grassroots youth, you know, whatever level really. I mean, I've been fortunate, obviously, with at Carshalton now. You know, I've done a few sessions with the first team, albeit not many. My main focus is with the academy players and under 19s, really 16 to 19. But we do a lot of technical work, you know, as part of that kind of activation before the start of a session. But then, you know, I think it's overlooked in a sense. Everyone wants to be able to, you know, we're talking at high level now. There's so much punditry on TV and analysis and things like that. And everyone's, you know, you want to work on third man running and kind of passing through the lines. But if you can't control a ball with both feet and then simply have the technique to pass it, it's irrelevant of what you're trying to achieve. So that's why I think I feel very fortunate that I was exposed to that quite early on, and that really shaped my philosophies as a coach. And because again, you know, you look at non-league football and everyone goes like balls in the air all the time, or it's not necessarily that technically advanced, which I think it can be. But then, like anything, unless you practice that stuff, you're never going to become better at it. And it's not.
I think. Sorry. Okay. I think everyone tries to now, don't they? Like in the last few years. You know, like the Pep way. Everyone you see everyone trying to play out from the back, but there's more to it than that, isn't it? You like, if you can't just pass it out to the back. There needs to be, he needs to know where to go, he needs to know where to go, and there's an actual system to it. It's not just passing it to the back, because you see a lot of players passing it out, passing it out to the centre back or even the full back, and then that's it. They just lump it forward, or they get pressed and lose the ball. So I think they are trying, but it's that teaching the whole of it as a whole team, rather than just we want to pass it out from the back.
I mean, I literally have this debate with my dad probably 2-3 times a week, because I was quite lucky. I mean, I grew up, my dad had a very good career. He was playing professional as a younger man, but then kind of made his name pretty more so in non-league football. So he's played with like Dulwich Hamlet, Sutton United, got through to the Vars final in 81, and then kind of went into non-league management. So with Walton and Hersham, Sutton United and Dorking and different clubs. So I kind of grew up in that changing room, kind of seeing things. But his biggest thing at the moment is about the whole plan out from the back and why the teams persist with it when they haven't got the technical capabilities to do that. And, you know, it's a great argument to have, because, and again, I know a lot of people see Pep, don't they, have that influence. But for me, you've got to find the right system for your players that works. But I think fundamentally, if you can teach someone how to receive it, you know, which foot they're going to use, what the body shape's going to look like, and some just the detail on it. And again, I think that's just an expectation that you should just be able to do that. But in my opinion, that's kind of wrong in place, because unless you're taught anything, you're not just going to naturally know how to do that. And you can break the mechanics of that stuff down to be able to, you know, teach that and pass that information on.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. The pitches as well.
I started learning to play in Belgium, and that was a completely different system. And, you know, we don't ever pull out of a tackle as a Belgian player, but you absolutely knew how to handle the ball. You were always a little bit more technical proficient, and we had people like Enzo Schifo, people who could hold the ball and just pass it around and spray it about. And one of the elements there, it's very similar to the Ajax way, really, is you can learn to play in various different positions, because during the match you're not going to be staying in that same position. In Belgium, they used to look at the English football and call it kick and rush. Because it used to be the long ball and get you in rush in the end. But obviously it's not that. But it's quite interesting that at what stage do you think for the players coming through, they really start needing to look at their controlling the ball, mastery of the ball, and being able to just, we watch professional players, and one of the things that I think is incredible, you look at Lionel Messi, before you've even got the ball anywhere near him, he's looked around him 4 or 5 times. He knows where he is. He's not running around like a lunatic. He's actually controlling the game because he knows where it's coming from. At what stage do you think that control and that looking at everything that's going around you is important for players? Is that right from the under-8s, or you start bringing that in a little bit later?
Oh, start earlier. I mean, I think, again, that you kind of go through the phases where there's no pressure in a sense of no one trying to tackle you. Just fall in love with the ball. I know it's a cliche, but just working left foot, right foot, dexterity, coordination, balance, just getting all those touches, using inside of the foot, outside of the foot, laces, heels, whatever. Because again, it's all part of the activation, and just have fun discovering that. So we do that now, the players, and I think, and probably more so when you get older, like my age now. I mean, I'm lucky if I can even get my leg out to use the outside of my foot, and everything else everywhere. But I think, from a young age, just get that going, and you start to then hone in on different techniques. And again, it's just we did some stuff with our under 19s, and you just see, it's just that, speed of thought between the brain and the feet, just trying to get things working and that balance and coordination. And it's, I mean, that's probably a little bit, you're never too old, in my opinion, to keep practicing these things, and you can always improve, on those things. But from a young age, and we bring that through to the adults. I always love it when you see stuff on socials that go viral. I think the last one I saw, probably like Atletico Madrid, they were doing, like a curve style or technical warm up with like lots of different touches and things like that. And it was like, why are they doing that? It's like, when footballers have got to touch a ball. It's not beneath anybody to do that. And I think that's probably, where some of the ego sometimes come into it. We go, oh, you should be in a circus if you're doing that stuff. But I mean, it's all, as long as it becomes game relatable, further down the line, you're not just doing it for like the Cirque du Soleil show. You know what I mean? It's got to have an end product on that side of it. But so, I think it's, from every age to still do that and try and learn new skills and new touches and techniques.
That's all I did when I was younger. I was fortunate enough to have quite a big garden, and I just used to smash the ball up the house wall. I don't know how I didn't break a window, but I was just out there all the time, just kicking the ball up the wall, getting it, touching it back, kicking it again. And then, as a kid, I didn't know that I was just doing it for fun. But as I've got older, and you see stuff on social media about you just use a wall and pass it, kick it up, touch and stuff like that. And I think that helped me so much, which I didn't even realise when I was younger.
It's exactly that. It's something that simple. I mean, I say my dad, not like he was a disciplinarian, far from it, but he would never really play with me in the garden unless I used both feet. And those that know me now will still know my right foot is predominantly for standing on, but I still feel quite comfortable using it. I'm okay on my left.
Oh, you're left-footed,
I am a lefty,
Yeah,
so,
same,
so the right one, has its moments. It can swing it a couple of times, but but just again having that comfort, being comfortable in possession is everything, I think, and that transcends up the leagues, isn't it, and everything that you do.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I was quite interested in is because all these kids ultimately they all dream about making it, and making it could be different things for different people. It doesn't have to be that you make it all the way to the Premier League. You could get to League 2, and that's made it for your career, or various different levels in non-league. What do you reckon are basically the biggest things that are holding back the players when they're coming through, whether that is mentality or a physical approach or challenge? So when you've got a bunch of players who are 16, 17, they're coming through the academy, they're going on. We know very few of them will make it. When they're starting to look for trials and they're starting to look for advancing their careers, what is it that's holding them back, or what is it that they need to be aware of a little bit when they're approaching the trial seasons?
Yeah, no, it's a great. I mean, I think the biggest. I mean, obviously, everyone, and rightly so, talks about the 4 pillars within that side of things. So I think, for me, and this is something I've probably become more aware of and spend more time on with our players. It's just that mental resilience and robustness. I think that's because the journey, development across the board is never linear. So your pathway is always going to be different things and rejections. And I was kind of looking through. I think it might have been even Peter Crouch. I can't remember, one of the players spoke about, but I think the average number of rejections from, before you kind of got that contract. It was around 14, 15, I think, on that journey. So, that's a hell of a lot of setbacks in that kind of in that kind of pursuit of getting that contract. So you've got to be able to rebound and respond to those types of things. So I think unless you've got that mental kind of strength and awareness and maturity to be able to handle that, and then likewise going into those situations, I think, a lot of people will get in their own head and psych themselves out and, and kind of impact their performance negatively when they do get into those environments. So we're quite good. I mean, one of the great partners we work with at football is a guy called Steve Salis, and we've worked with Steve for a good few years now, and I think he's brilliant. And he talks about just that kind of that mental robustness, and then having that, we try and channel it. I think apparently, between excitement and nerves come from the same part of the brain. So it's like a case of going, right, let's focus on that excitement. Okay, don't worry about the nervousness. Be excited to be in that moment, embrace it, and do everything that you want to do because you work so hard to get there. Then enjoy that moment, and then don't worry about what you can't control. Just focus on what you can do, and then I think you try and get people to feel comfortable in that moment, and that's something that certainly stuck with me, and we try and pass on to our players. And it's and then once you're there, just enjoy it and let your natural ability take over. You work so hard to get there, and then don't fluff it up by just overthinking about it, which again, I appreciate is easy to say and whatnot. But
mate, that's an absolutely great tip. Yeah. It's really, really,
I think that's
really
what happened to me. Sorry, Pat.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me. Like I love football playing as a kid. I had my shin pads on at like 9 a.m, ready for the game at 2. But as I got older, like when I turned 18, I didn't drink till I was 18. And then as soon as I hit 18, the drink comes, the girls come. And then I was just nervous all the time and overthinking, like you say. Whereas before, it was all about having fun, and I knew I could play and stuff like that. And so it does affect you in mentally. And I think if I was a coach, that's all I'd be saying is just go and enjoy it. Don't focus on winning the league or anything. Just one game at a time. Enjoy it. Play like you're a kid again.
Yeah, and it's I think we all kind of preach that, don't we? But it's like, I think it transcends. I mean, I've worked in, I say corporate world, but I had corporate businesses where we was working at a lot of different events and different kind of experiences around that world. But I think it's, it's about being present in that moment and kind of really making the most of those things. Because some of them, it's not necessarily once in a lifetime, but the more relaxed you are and comfortable, then you can really, showcase of what you can do. And it's then,
Well, so one of the things with trials is when people know that there's someone watching them, they tend to get a little bit tighter, they get a little bit stiffer, they worry about the mistakes they're making. And actually, the scout who's coming in, and we've learned this, is the scout's not necessarily looking at whether or not you're making a mistake at that particular point. They're looking at your attitude when you do make a mistake, whether you're able to then turn around and then actually get back into the game. Because if you put your head down and your team are counting on you and you've made a mistake, you're not really showing the attributes that you want to be showing at that point. To come back to a point you were saying, Lee, on kind of fear and excitement, it is exactly the same. So your body, your mind actually can't tell the actual difference between whether you are fearing a moment or whether you're very excited a moment. And it is a very similar thing. I'm terrified of heights. I've got vertigo. And one of the things I've tried to learn to do is to actually turn that fear that I've got into an excitement, and to actually tell myself I'm not fearful that something's going to happen. I'm excited about what's coming up. And actually, it completely does change your mindset. I mean, it takes a lot of practice, and it's something that is not necessarily that easy to do. It feels a bit weird at first because you're going, no, I'm scared, leave me alone. But actually, if you can get excited about it and relax with that excitement, because sometimes you can get a little bit too excited, and you get a bit too, it can boil over into aggression on the pitch. So as long as you're staying within yourself, it makes sense. And I mean, can you teach that to the kids? Is that something that you look at, obviously, apart from the how to handle the ball and how to control the ball and how to beat the game, on the mental side, is that something that you can really develop?
Wholeheartedly, yes, in my opinion, on that side, because I think that comes from preparation. That becomes, a part of your everyday routines. So I think if you're thoroughly prepared and, you know, you go through that same thought processes and everything from a daily training sessions. Obviously, our boys are in training 4 days a week and a day of match days at the academy. So, you know, but we want that level of intensity, that preparation in every session. You know, you want to drive standards. So, and it's a case of, right. And to be honest, we're kind of getting there. It's not, you know, a quick or easy change to kind of maintain that. But when we have our games internally, it's probably more competitive and, you know, turns into a bit of a bloodbath at times, like, because where they're all best mates, you know, you're like back in the day, you know, they're kicking the crap out of each other, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it's like, but that level of intensity is there. So, but then, so you've more so every day we're trying to replicate that culture of competitiveness, that level of kind of control that you have to have, because emotions, probably more so with your friends and you've got that familiarity, can explode quite quickly. So if you can control it in there, then when you step out of that, you know, then yeah, you've got to be able to maintain that composure in what you do. So, so I think it's a case of, yeah, we'll always try and, you know, probably prod and poke a little bit to get reactions from people so they can learn from that as well. So it's knowing, you know, and understanding players really on a one-to-one of going, right, how do you get the best out of that? I was on the field this afternoon and, you know, pulled up one of the players. He's very kind of explosive in how he communicates and what he does. And it's like, look, that can work for some players, but other players, if you start getting into their heads and kind of ranting and raving, they're going to go introverted. You know, that's just their nature. Yeah. So that's going to have a detrimental impact to what they do. So then, and obviously in the heat of the moment, it's like kind of play on and learn from that. But then after, you have to reflect on that. You know, so your job as a player is one, you know, get yourself prepared and do that. But then I think if you really want to go to that next level, is then how do you influence those around you? And you have to know people. You have to be able to be, you know, a good train of thought and say, right, okay, if that person is particularly introverted or if they're a bit, you know, whatever their personality type may be, right, how do I get the best out of them? You know, whether that's an arm around a shoulder, whether that's kind of more positive talk, you know, whatever that trigger may be, you've got to find a way to do that. And then I think that just helps you as a player first and like, you know, to improve your performance, because then we've got two players that are now really starting to link up, you know, fantastic combinations in a centre midfield. And it's like now you watch them play and it's like, oh, it's a joy to watch. But then you can see that relationship taking place off the field, which then, you know, we're quite fortunate that's kind of carrying over onto it. But that's a real cool thing. And that's something that they'll learn and kind of then, you know, again, that carries over into everything they do. That's just not about a football relationship. That's about then life skills and going on. So yeah, I think 100% you can teach those things. And again, that's something that, yeah, it's just not something you can just talk about. I think it's just a culture and, you know, you have to be able to kind of deliver those types of messages. I mean, we're quite fortunate we train every day, but then likewise, I work with teams where it is once a week for an hour. But it's then trying to resonate those messages and communicate that and trying to just be consistent with that messaging.
Yeah. I mean, we've got the reality about the non-league is that you've got completely different setups depending on what club and what level you're at. And, you know, you have got that ability where you're talking about, you know, 4 or 5 times a week and you've got a regular contact, you can build on something. You obviously have not played at the level that I have, where you're turning up on a Sunday morning in a hut and you've got a couple of guys with a fag and a hangover. And
I've been there as well. Don't worry, I've watched my mates on that stuff.
Well, that's right then. So I was thinking, I did that at the end of my career. And, you know, it doesn't matter what you tell you about the mentality, as long as you've got as close to 11 players as you can on the pitch, we'll be all right. But the thing is, you can actually instill like a mentality of an actual team mentality into any set of players. And for me, that's what makes football fantastic. It's the best game on the planet for that. What is it that, I mean, you mentioned about some of the life skills. They're not all going to make it. And I've mentioned it already. And that's the harsh reality. And one of the things we want to do in the non-league is give players the most opportunities to learn, to get good nutrition, get good mental health support, to get good coaching, to be ready to go to the trials, give all the opportunities to find out where the trials are happening. So non-league network, it's all based around that, really, all the opportunities we didn't get. But some of them aren't going to make it, and quite a lot of them. Within the life skills that you're coaching, and you said some of those, obviously you can move them into what I would call civvy world. Bearing in mind, a lot of players in the non-league do still have a normal job anyway, and then they'll play themselves, and they get a bit of money doing that way. What is it that you can see from a football pitch that you can then transpose into a working life, whether you're working a manual work or you're working with an office? What is it that you're focusing on there, that you're giving your academy players a bit of life skills?
Yeah, no, I mean, we look at everything kind of holistically, quite frankly. So again, you kind of, just to put it in football terms, back to that 4-pillar model, where it's the technical, tactical, psychological, and then the physical side. But, and with our lads, it's about being authentic and real to them. As you say, like the statistics about actually making it at the highest level, are obviously very few and far between. But so we talk, really about having 2 plan A's or multiple plan A's. So I don't, obviously, where you want to get to, whether that's obviously professional football, but then you've got to have other plans, or at least thoughts or processes in place of what, that may look like if you don't get to that level. And I think, non-league these days, compared to certainly when I was playing, you can still earn very well from non-league football. Yeah. There's a lot of money in there, and there's no, and it's still a good standard. It's a great standard, really. Yeah. So, to still be earning that kind of money, or, or if you're getting paid to play, you're going to be one of the small minority that's in that position. But I think, again, for us, it's then looking at that holistically about just being a good person. I know that's a real cliche answer, but just I read one of the books, I think it was about legacy, I think about this, the All Blacks. And they just had a theory, didn't they? There's obviously they were the most successful winning sports team, and I think their philosophy was very "don't be a dick," which was which it's not going to blind you with science on that one, but it was just so if anyone got above their station, they'd get reeled back in by one of the senior players. Just don't be a dick, And it's like, I know that's an easy thing to say, but it's you've got to be level-headed. You've got to have a sense of humour. I think that's a massively important thing, to be able to laugh at yourself and laugh with your teammates and not take everything too serious. Again, don't really put that pressure on yourself. But I think the biggest thing for us is, we really preach that kind of accountability and ownership, and then kind of working, how, so before you can start dishing out anybody else, just kind of pointing that finger internally and go, right, am I doing everything I can do to be the best version of myself? And then how can I go and help someone else? And it's then, I think, then that puts you in good stead when you're going into the civvy world, as you call it. I run offices from our businesses. We've had 30 full-time staff, which was nice, but very competitive places. But everyone's knows their responsibilities, but then got to work well as part of a team. And then the old football classic, I revert back to when Leicester won the Premier League. Like, obviously, defied all the odds, didn't they? But what separated them out from everybody else was just they were united in everything they did. Yeah. They would put their head against the post for their teammate, and they'd gone on and beat teams that are probably far more talent and certainly resources, financially and every other way, but they were a better team than everybody else. So I think that's which is pretty lofty aspirations, but I think we've got to try and drive those standards for people and set them and what they can do.
I really like that. Leicester City is. I mean, we had Macclesfield against Palace in the FA Cup just the weekend just gone, and it really these are stories that give you inspiration, really, for the players that are coming through, and also the guys like myself who are well past that stage, but going into and going to watch the non-league matches, the levels are actually really, really good, and I prefer to go and watch non-league games or League One, League Two games, because I can't afford to go to Premiership matches on that much of a regular basis. It's nice, but it's not necessarily worth that much more. So to me, going to watch non-league matches is quite a nice thing. One thing I'd like to mention, though, is you were talking about, don't be a dick, the All Blacks version, brilliant. One of the things that happens is when you start playing semi-pro or pro level, there'll be more and more people watching you. So the higher up you get, the more likely you are to be playing in front of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, maybe 10,000 people. Within that crowd, unfortunately, there'll be the odd person who is there
the dick
specifically to be going for you. So how do you prepare a kid who's been playing in front of 30 people when, if mum kicks off or dad kicks off, you can't stay here, to playing in front of Gillingham when you got the Gillingham army going down at you, or Millwall? How do you prepare them mentally for that kind of stuff?
No, great question. I mean, it's I don't think there's necessarily a secret recipe on there, but again, from our guys, we actually take. I mean, I think it's things you can practice. I mean, we was in the FA Youth Cup at the start of the season. I think we got through to just before the third round proper. But we'd then get into practice penalties, but we would get, do it properly. So starting out from halfway line, walking down, but we'd get the rest of the team, the rest of the squad or academy players behind the goal in the crowd, and pretty much go, right, you've got a blank canvas to try and replicate what would happen on a game day.
That's class.
So, I think a few sailors might be quite proud of some of the comments coming out there, but, it's just a case of, right, just again, focusing on what you're doing, know what you can control, focus on that. But I think it's a part of everyday life. And I think we've got I've got one player at the moment I think he's got a huge amount of potential, but he is very volatile. So, and he'll get inside his own head. If he doesn't win his 1v1 duel straight away, he was kind of getting up on himself. Likewise, if someone else was to kind of get in his ear, get in his head, that would take him off his game. And it's I think one is then a conversation on a one-to-one. He's got to recognize that in himself. So saying, right, if you're not winning your battle, what can you do differently? So this is where we're kind of now implementing just individual development plans. So we will sit down and have, it's a collaboration to go, right, we'll have a season-long goal, what they want to achieve, and then you've got some short-term action points as well. So, we kind of try and maybe one or two areas, but a lot of that is mentally focused, because again, if you take yourself out of if you get wound up, we've got another lad I think has been sent off 12 times in his career. He's 18. Now, if you play at high level, you will get exposed very quickly. An experienced player will recognize that. Couple of words, you're sent off, your team's down to 10 men, thanks very much. So I think it is just being, again, real with players to recognize, like anything, you've got to recognize what your strengths are, what your areas of improvement are, and if your mentality is a real area for improvement, then let's really work on that. And it's it's not linear in its success or that approach, but you've got to recognize what that is, and then we can work on that. And it's it can be quite a fun one sometimes, trying to adjust, and kind of work with players on that. And I think that's kind of a bit of sense of humor at times, and kind of come in and try and lighten that mood, because things can kind of kick off quite quickly where everyone's so competitive and feisty. But you can definitely work on all those areas, I believe.
Nice one. I'm just wondering on one of those things. We were talking about obviously the non-league. That's our area of interest. Although Dave and I, we have to admit, we're Man United fans. So you were describing a couple of our players there with a bit of petulance. But when you're looking at the non-league level, what do you reckon the future of non-league is going to be like? I mean, it's a really, really difficult question to ask, but we're asking all our guests on this one. So the non-league, to me, is getting a little bit more structured, starting to be a little bit more knowledge about some elements of nutrition, some elements of looking after the players. But where do you see that happening maybe in the next few years? Where do you see the developments happening in the non-league?
No, I really think, I love it. I grew up in the non-league, from a kid in the changing rooms when my dad was managing to then playing it, and obviously now working and coaching at that level. And it's, I think, certainly things are progressing and moving forward. I think, the infrastructure within all clubs, from the grassroots now really kind of seeping through. So I think we have 1,100 kids at the grassroots level, probably from under 16s. But then from the academy side, we've got, I think, 6 or 7 players from the academy already playing first team football for us, and then going on to different clubs. So I think that pathway is is a lot closer now within most clubs. So I think people can see the success on there. But I think it's a great standard to be playing. And I think there's, more investment going into the clubs as well. And I think, as you say, people, from my generation when we were playing, I don't know how it was for you, Dave, but I remember, I think I made one of my debuts. I ended up playing for Crithian Casuals, and brilliant team. And we had one of our away games, and we had our own team bus back then, which we thought we were quite, it was quite a rarity to have that. I think after my debut was playing drinking games on the coach on the way back. And then, it was for a young lad kind of coming through, I ended up had to be naked in a clubhouse for about 20 minutes when we got back to the ground, So I learned quite quickly from some of the senior players how to kind of conduct yourself and whatnot. But, times have changed massively on that, right? So I think that level of professionalism has certainly improved. And it's and I think it's only going to continue in that direction as more stuff starts to filter down into the non-league levels. And it's which is ultimately a good thing for everybody, I think, really.
Yeah, I think it's definitely improved so much in the last 10 years. And I think I think players still need educating on how good a standard it actually is. And like touching back on when we was on about academy releases, and I don't think they're looked after enough. And before I started this idea and seeing a couple of programs about that, where they've been released and they've actually took their own life or thought about it, and I feel like there's not enough of a voice or for non-league. There needs to be that pathway back into non-league, which is what we're trying to do for them as well, because it's not the end once they've been released. Like non-league can be the way back in, and there's so many good teams and good routes like you at Cole Shulton. That pathway is quality. So it's just about teaching players that it's not the end, and non-league can be like the start.
And I think that's brilliant, Dave. I think, what the work you guys are doing, I think it is incredible. And I think, I couldn't endorse that more. I mean, it's not, as I say, you're still, for the most part, getting paid to play football, but a good level, good facilities, more importantly, good people around you that actually want to help you and improve you. You've got that community vibe to it as well. So you're playing in front of crowds, but it gives you that platform to push on, doesn't it? And I think you're seeing a lot more players now, certainly going through the non-league level, and they are getting that coaching, they are getting that experience that then enable them to go on. And it still makes me laugh. I saw stuff today off the back of like obviously Macclesfield beating Palace, wasn't it? But where I think one of the guys was a PE teacher who's back at school today, and everyone's amazed by it and stuff like that. And but again, it just instills that kind of work rate and that mentality and just that realness to it. I mean, that's and I think it's, for some of those scholars that do get released, it does give them a little glimpse into the real world of going, right, you know what, you've got to work all day and then go and train and play at the weekends or whatever it may be. But then don't take for granted those opportunities that you do have. So when you are there, you've got to absolutely work your socks off and be the best version of you every day. That's what separates the great from the good. If you can be consistent with that, then you're going to do well. And I think you've put yourself in that window, because the reality is you've got scouts at every single game. From my under 16s, we've got scouts from Premier League, Championship, League One, etc. every single game. So talent is there, but then again, you've just got to have that consistency to then really go on to that next level if that's your pathway that you want to do.
Do you tell them, Lee, that there's scouts coming?
Sometimes, I mean, the better scouts are always pretty, keep themselves to themselves and don't really necessarily put themselves in the shop window and make it too known that they're there. But we've got a lot of players. As I say, it's not. I think it's quite, commonly known really for the most part. I mean, from our under 16s, we're in the Surrey Premier Elite, so we've got some really good, competitive games week in, week out. We've got guys on trial at the moment. From different levels, from Premier League clubs to Championship sides. We've probably got 2 or 3 players in there. So all the boys are aware of it and kind of know what's going on. But, we don't draw attention to that because, again, that point we were saying earlier, just play. What will be, will be. And that's what, we've got a lot of players that are, and see a lot of stuff now where they're chasing it. And it's like, it's just trying to get that balance right, isn't it? Between chasing those trials, chasing that showcase. But if you don't, I don't think you necessarily need to do that and work as hard to chase that. It's like, look, if you've got a good environment, good staff around you, and you are improving and enjoying what you do, then you'll get spotted, because it's just, there's too many people and too many, people looking around to try and identify that talent. So
there is, and there's a lot more like businesses like ours, Non-League Network, where we're showcasing some of the players. There's the opportunity for open trials. There's all sorts of various different things that are available now that weren't really the case 20, 30 years ago. So like obviously we're coming towards the end of this, and I'm really enjoying this time. One of the things that I'm learning from this is just be yourself. Just go out there, touch the ball, enjoy yourself. Don't be a dick. Just have fun on the pitch. Make sure you're playing as a team. But if you've got players out there or families who've got players within their environment, or parents who are wanting to push their kids a little bit, how can they find out a bit more about what you do, Lee, and what you're doing with Footballer?
So for us, I mean, we've got a lot of different kind of our experiences, and so we're very much a holistic development. So just on the website, literally www.footballer.com. But we have variation of products really, from kind of development day camps, training camps, and then also like international tours. So that's really down to individual players as well as teams and clubs. So we're quite fortunate. We work at all levels, from the professional game down to kind of grassroots on that side. But yeah, I think everything, football's a far bigger world than just within the UK from a playing perspective. So again, we talk to a lot of players that it's Premier League or bust, and it's like, look, there's so many opportunities to still be within the game, earning a career from that. Again, from whether that's analytical, whether that's kind of nutritional based, whether that's actually playing, which is obviously the main focus for a lot. But yeah, we've had players that have gone out to the US and playing. We've had players out in Australia. We've got likewise, we've had clients from Australia that are now playing in Europe. We've had guys from Canada that are playing in Germany. We had a lot of work in South Korea for a while that are now playing within the UK. But yeah, everything's on that site. So we're looking at, again, just that holistic kind of experiences and development programs where just trying to peel back the curtain to give insights of what is happening at the top level, and then how you can implement that from into your own kind of daily routines.
Nice one. What would one of your international tours look like? So if I had a kid and they were 17, 18, they wanted to come to you, what would you do on one of those international tours?
Yeah, again, we'll just really have an initial consultation. So it's understanding that, we'll look at that kind of individual player and then kind of go, a lot of our stuff is mainly kind of team or small group orientated, but with individual players that we've had, it's about understanding them, looking at a potential assessment, looking at a benchmarking aspect of where they're at. And then trying to build an individual development program around them. So you've got to understand and identify, where the key areas of improvement may be. And then the whole classic, that whatever the strengths are of that player, how can we enhance them even more? So very much quite a tailored kind of proposition. So everything that we do is not necessarily a one size fits all. We've got kind of key partners in key areas of development that would then look to bring in, and then really kind of tailor that proposition to those players or that team or that club.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee. Listen, it's been really fascinating. I could talk to you all evening and listen to your stories. Some of the thing is obviously once you get Dave talking, we're not going to get it. We'll be there till breakfast time. What I would really like to do is as a final message. So say for us, one of the elements that's very important is mental health element there, and sometimes you just feel stuck. And it's just taking that very first step. It's just making sure that when you wake up in the morning, you're going, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I'm talented, but I'm a little bit stuck. And say you're an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, what would be the very first thing that you could just say to them as a little bit of a takeaway from this, that they could just go, okay, that's the first thing that I can do, the very first element?
Yeah, great question. I think it's, one is just recognizing it's okay not to be okay. You're going to have good days and bad days, and it's then don't overthink that. Don't be hard on yourself. I think there's a lot of, lot of problems right now in the world and everyone's waking up with different things kind of going on. And I think it's just embracing that and don't overthink it. And then, it's never going to be as bad as what you necessarily think, but then, speak to people. I'm a big believer in communicate. You've got to be able to, find a mentor, whether, a best friend, someone to be able to talk to and get that out. As I say, there's a lot of issues and problems going on, but I think a problem spoke about is a problem shared. And I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of people going through a lot of the same things, but you don't necessarily know that. So it's just having that kind of, being able to, be honest with yourself and with those around you that you trust, and then get that out there. And then we can, there's a lot of people that will help you. And I think, but unless unless people know, then it's hard to necessarily identify that and really get to the core. But yeah, have that confidence where possible to be able to confide in people.
That's it. Yeah. Don't suffer in silence, basically. You can share that. Well, thank you, Lee. Thank you, David. It's been a really, really good podcast, actually. I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes out on the air and seeing what you're going to develop with football as well.
Yeah. So, no, again, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate having us on, and then looking forward to working with you guys and across the future.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much, Lee.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
Cheers. Bye-bye.